A good moyed. Tonight is the yard side, actually, the 50th yard side of my mother, Ha'isha Hatzitkonis, Rashke Etzi Rivke Bas Reb Chaim Yisrael. So may our learning be Le'ilui Nishmasa. Okay, the in the Sefer Minhagim of Reb Avram Kloisner. Reb Avram Kloisner was one of the Gdolei Hador in the 14th century. Uh, he was in Vienna most of the time. Anyway, the Sefer Minhagim of Reb Avram Kloisner is one of the basic, probably the first Sefer Minhagim of Minhagei Ashkenaz, and he says that on Shvi Shel Pesach we should say Zman Simchoseinu, not Zman Cheruseinu, but Zman Simchoseinu. The Ramah in the Darkei Moshe, in the end of Siman Tov Tzadik, brings in the name of Reb Isaac Tirna and the Maharil, who also wrote Sifrei Minhagim, and they actually were both Talmidim of Reb Avram Kloisner, that they say that we should say Zman Cheruseinu, and so paskins the Ramah in the Hagah in Shulchan Aruch that we say, and that's what we all do. We say Zman Cheruseinu. The fact that we say Zman Cheruseinu on Shvi Shel Pesach, in spite of the fact that L'chore we already were liberated on Tesvav Nissen, it must be that we're saying that the Geula wasn't complete, the Cherus wasn't complete until Krias Yamsuf, as the Rabbeinu Bachye in Parshas Va'era, in the beginning of Parshas Va'era, on the pasuk V'ga'alti eschem b'zroyan etuyo u'b'shvotim g'dolim, he says Zeh remez l'Kriyas Yamsuf she'oz nechshevu ge'ulim. Only with Kriyas Yamsuf were we considered redeemed. Ki ha'eved hayotzei mitachas yad ha'odoin ha'kosher asher meire eschayov bekamo mine shibudin v'hutzrach l'shalchoi mi'itoi v'lasois ben chore. When a master is forced to release a slave, al korchoi oid ha'eved yorei, the eved is still afraid. Umispached pen yirdoif adoin of achrov. Maybe he'll chase after him. Ve'ein ha'geula shleimo eitzel ha'eved. Ad she'izbarer b'misas ha'odin. Only when his master is no longer does the eved feel secure. V'zehu sheloi timtza loshoin geula b'yitzias Mitzrayim rak achar ovdon hamitzrayim. Only after the Mitzrayim drowned in the Yam do we find the Lashon Geula. Shenemar vayinayer Hashem es Mitzrayim b'toich hayom v'samich lei vayoisha Hashem bayoim ahu es Yisrael ki oz nechshevu geulim v'noishoim v'oz hoisa hateshua shleima. So, in other words, the Cherus was incomplete. We weren't secure with our Cherus, and therefore the day of Krias Yamsuf is considered the completion of Zman Cheruseinu. The reason not to say Zman Cheruseinu, that Reb Avram Kloisner held that we shouldn't say Zman Cheruseinu, probably he held that we already were liberated on the first day of Pesach, and true, there was a possibility that we would that liberation would be undone, but nevertheless, that's not a reason that it should be considered Zman Cheruseinu. But how does he explain that we say Zman Cheruseinu during Chol HaMoed Pesach? Probably we need to say that since the Chol HaMoed Pesach is not an independent Mikra Kodesh, and it's really a hemshech to the Mikra Kodesh of the Yom HaRishon, so we still say Zman Cheruseinu. And only when it comes to Shvi Shel Pesach, which is an independent Bayom HaShvi Mikra Kodesh, then he holds that you should no longer say Zman Cheruseinu. But, I mean, why do we say Zman Simchoseinu? It probably, we should say that this generic term of Zman Simchoseinu is b'meshayach to all Yomim Tovim. It's just that when we have something to express the unique quality of that particular yontif, we say that, like Zman Matan Torasenu or Zman Cherusenu. But when we don't have anything in particular to say, we fall back on the general term of Zman Simchosenu because all Moyadim are Moyadim L'Simcha. However, I want to suggest that this is not the pshat, that be'emes, it could be that the Rav Ram Kloisner and those that held that way, that you say Zman Simchosenu, it's not because they held that it's inappropriate to say Zman Cherusenu, but because they held that Zman Simchosenu is the right thing to say for Shvi Shel Pesach. Shvi Shel Pesach is in particular shayach to this inyan of Simchosenu. This defines the identity of Shvi Shel Pesach. And why? Why? So, on the pasuk in Parshas Re'eh that says Sheishes Yomim Toichal Matzes U'Bayoyim Hashvi Atzeres LaHashem Elokecha Lo Yisasem Elocha. So it says Bayoyim Hashvi Atzeres. Atzeres Pashtus means an assembly. The Sforno says U'Bayoyim Hashvi Atzeres Netzru Bo Yisrael Yachdov, that Yidden assembled together la'avodas hakel yisbarach, to serve the Rebbeinu Shalom, v'sharu lo shira b'shvi shel Chag HaMatzos, and they sang the Shira Sayam to the Rebbeinu Shalom on the Yom HaShvi the Chag HaMatzos, l'fichach nekadesh oiso yom. That's why we sanctify this day. And the next Dibra Maschel lo yisaseh melocha, he says kilu leizeh. If not for the fact that Klal Yisrael got together on the original Shvi Shel Pesach and said the Shira Sayam, Lulei zeh lo yhoyo hashvi kodesh klal. K'moy shehu ha'inyan b'chag ha'sukkos she'ein hashvi sheloi mikra kodesh. Sukkos, the seventh day, is not a mikra kodesh. The eighth day is an independent inyan. B'yoyim hashmini atzeres. But the seventh day is not a mikra kodesh. And dafka over here it is. And why is that? Only because this is the day that we said the Shira Sayam. So you see, contrary to what we would assume, that the Yom Tov of Shvi Shel Pesach is connected to the miracle of Krias Yamsuf. The Sforno is saying that it's not based on the miracle of Krias Yamsuf, but rather on our response to that miracle. In other words, it's Atzeres, Shenetzru Yisrael Yachdov, V'shoru loy shira. The Mikra Kodesh of Shvi Shel Pesach is based on the fact that we assembled and we said the Shira Sayam. That's the foundation of the Mikra Kodesh of Shvi Shel Pesach. Okay. So in the Birchas Krias Shema Shel Arvis we say U'malchusay v'rotzayin kiblu aleim Moshe v'nei Yisrael l'cho anu shira b'simcha rabba v'amru chulam. So we see that the Shira Sayam was said b'simcha rabba, with a great simcha. Now, since the Shira is the Yesod of the Mikra Kodesh and the Atzeres of Yom HaShvi, so l'chora, that's really why we should say Zman Simchosenu, because this is a Mikra Kodesh that's based on the fact that we were Netzar Yachtov to say the Shira Sayam, and the Shira Sayam was said b'simcha rabba. But it's interesting that we don't find anywhere in Psukim that the Shira was said b'simcha. And for sure we don't see that it was said b'simcha rabba. What's the source of this tefillah that we say that l'cha anu shira b'simcha, not only b'simcha, but b'simcha rabba? What's the source of this? So first of all, I don't know, but I want to suggest. The Gemara says in Brachas, the Aflamed Hey, Amar Reb Shmuel bar Nachmeni, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Minayin she'ein oimrim shira elo al hayayin. Shira in the Beis Hamikdash was said when they poured the Nisach Hamayim into the Shita. Minayin she'ein oimrim shira elo al hayayin. Shenemar, v'atoimar lohem hagefen, a pasuk in Shoftim, which is really a mashal that the the vineyard said, Hechdalti esiroishi hamesameach Elokim va'anoshim. Shall I give up my vintage that makes Hashem and people happy? It's a mashal over there when they're making a melech. But in any case, we bring this pasuk and we say, Im anoshim misameach. In this pasuk, it says that yayin, tirosh, yayin, is misameach Elokim va'anoshim. And we ask, Im anoshim misameach. If wine makes people happy, Elokim b'ma misameach. How does it make Hashem kaviyachol happy? Mikan she'ein oimrim shira ela al hayayin, and the shira is what brings happiness above. Now it's not clear. I mean, the anoshim misameach and the Elokim misameach are two independent things, or they're one is dependent on the other. It's misameach Elokim because it's misameach anoshim. It's misameach anoshim because it's misameach Elokim, or it just so happens that yayin is misameach anoshim, and it's misameach Elokim because ain't emrim shira ela ala yayin. So you know, in Erechin Daf Yud Aleph, in the sugya of minayin leikir shira min haTorah, it says in the Gemara has several different sources for shira min haTorah. So Rav Masna Omar Mehochet. Rav Masna says that the source for shira min haTorah is from the following pasuk. It says, Tachas asher lo yovadetos Hashem Elokecha b'simcha u'b'tuv levav. So the pasuk implies that we should serve the Rebbeinu Shalom b'simcha u'b'tuv levav. Eizohi avoide shebesimcha u'b'tuv levav. Which is the avoide that's b'simcha u'b'tuv levav? Have oimer ze shira. So this is a source for the chiyuv shira. Rashi says, what does it mean that Eizohi avoide shebesimcha u'b'tuv levav have oimer ze shira? Rashi says because ein adam shor shira ela mitoich simcha b'tuv levav. A person is shor shira only mitoich simcha b'tuv levav. The ksiv hine avoda yiroinu mituv leiv. So if avoda yiroinu is lashon exalt, lashon of simcha, the lashon of shira, mituv leiv. So we see that ein adam shor shira ela mitoich simcha b'tuv levav. So, when we say that Yayin is Mesamech Elokim through the Shira that's said over Yayin, it's really because the Yayin is Mesamech Anoshim. Since the Yayin is Mesamech Anoshim, and it brings a person into a state of Simcha, and in a state of Simcha, a person could be Shor Shira, therefore the yayin is Mesameach Elokim. In other words, it's Mesameach Elokim because it's Mesameach Anoshim, and it brings them to a state of Simcha where Shira can be said. So it comes out that the Mesameach Elokim v'Anoshim is really Ha B'Ha Talia. However, l'chara, I mean, the pshat, I mean, yayin is Mesameach Anoshim by drinking the wine, but Lefiza has nothing to do with being Mesamech Elokim because Einim Shira Elayayim. The Shira Elayayim was done when they poured the Nisuch Hayayin down the Mizbeach. I mean, nobody's drinking that wine. So what does it have to do that the Mesamech Elokim with Ein Oimrim Shira Ela Elayayim? What in the world does it have to do with the fact that Yayin is Mesamech Anoshim? Yayin is Mesamech Anoshim when they drink Yayin. It's Mesamech Elokim because we say Shira al Hayayin, but it really there's no real connection between the Mesamech Elokim and the Mesamech Anoshim. So I think that really the fact that Yayin is Mesamech Anoshim when they drink it, the shirish, the root, is really in the Indian of Yayin itself on a spiritual level, because the Gemara says in the beginning of Ketzad Mevorchim that we have a special bracha on Yayin. We don't make a boire pri ha'etz on the grape. We make a boire pri ha'etz, but on the Yayin we don't make a boire pri ha'etz, but we make a boire pri ha'gofen. And why is that? Because the Gemara says it's a brias shomayim that's ishtani l'mal yusa al yidei the ma'isa ha'adam. And since it's improved by humans, it's a brias shamayim that's improved by humans. It's koiveya a bracha chashuva. And that's the idea of the bracha of boirei priagofen, ishtani le'iluya. Actually, the Rashbam in Pesachim Daf Kovov brings in the name of the Shiltis that the bracha of boirei priagofen is inyan shir she'ein oimrim shiro el al hayayin. Every boirei priagofen has somehow status of shir al hayayin. So now we can say that our partnership with the Rebbeinu Shalom in creating wine, that's what makes wine a mesameach Eloikim va'anoshim. As we see, Lamoshel, that Shabbos, which is the matona toive, yeshli bebeis gnozai, it's completely God-given. Shabbos, there's no simcha. Shabbos, there's oineg, but no simcha. Where is there simcha? Moyadim l'simcha, because the Yomim Tovim is Katshinu l'Yisrael, the Katshinu l'Zmanim. There's a partnership between us and the Rebbeinu Shalom in making the Moyed, and when we're partners in the creation of the Kedushas Hazman, that's when we have simcha. Simcha is when somebody just receives something that he wasn't involved in creating and making it happen. There's no simcha. He might have oinig, but real simcha is only when I have a partnership in the making. You know, there's a pasuk in Tehillim that says Yikraeni ve'enehu imoy onoichi betzora achalsehu ve'achabdehu. So I find this pasuk to be a very shver pasuk. The pasuk is saying Yikraeni ve'enehu. He will call me and I will answer him. I'm with him in distress. And then it says, which means I will release him and I will bring him honor. I mean, how did honor get into the story? I mean, we're talking about somebody that's in distress. All that's needed is to release him. Yeah, who's looking for honor over here? Achalsehu va'achabdehu. The Rebbeinu Shalom promises that he'll give him honor. What does it have to do with what's going on over here? Well, Bahamas, we're talking about somebody, as it says in the previous pasuk, kivi choshak va'afaltehu asakvehu ki yod Hashemi. We're talking about a yid that's on the madrega that he yearned for me. Kivi choshak. And therefore, va'afaltehu, I'll deliver him, and asagvehu, ki yod Hashemi, I will elevate him because he knows my name. So it's a person that's on a high madrega. So since imoy anoichi betzora, the Rebbeinu Shalom is with him in his distress, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu could take him out of that, could release him. So why do we need the yikraeni ve'eneu? Why does he have to call out to the Rebbeinu Shalom? Why does he have to daven to the Rebbeinu Shalom in order to bring about the ve'enehu? Says the Rebbeinu Shalom feels his pain and cares about his pain. So why is it necessary that there should be a yikra'eni ve'enehu if it's imay anoichi b'tzara? The Teretz says because without the yikra'eni, there could be an achalsehu. The Rebbeinu Shalom could release him from the tzara, but there will not be a achabdehu. He'll have no dignity. Meaning to say, the Yerushalmi in Orla says, Ki yodua, man de'ochil delav delay, somebody that eats unearned bread is bohis leistakula ba'ape. He's embarrassed to look in the face of the one that's feeding him. Yeah. As we all know, the Ramchal in the beginning of the Das Tfunis says, based on this, Mashe Rotza Hu Yisbarach Shemoy Livroi Nivroim. The Rebbeinu Shalom created the Nivroim Kedei Sheyuchal Lahetiv Lahem. Really, he wants to bestow good on us. Ki Hashem Yisbarach Hu Tachlis HaToiv Umichoy Katoiv Lahetiv Omnom Kedei Shetiyeh HaHatov Shleimo Yoda B'Chochmosoi Sheroi sheyiu hamekabla moisa, mekabla moisa bigia kapayim. That they should have to sweat and work for the toiva that they will receive, because only then is it a toiva shleima. Ki oz yiu heim baalei hatoiva. Then they'll be the owners of that toiva. V'lo yeh lehem boishes ponim. They will not be embarrassed mekablam hatoiv k'moy misha mekabel tzedakah mi'acher. So therefore, even though it's imoy anochi b'tzara, and Avada the Rebbeinu Shalom could bring him out of that tzara chalseu, but the Rebbeinu Shalom doesn't want to do it that way. He wants us to be partners in bringing about the Yeshua. And in order that there should be not only a chalsehu, but also a chabdehu, that we should have our dignity restored, we should have the honor that the Rebbeinu Shalom wants us to have. So therefore, he set it up in a way that it should be yikra'eni, and only then ve'enehu, in order that it should be a chalsehu v'achabdehu. Okay. Now, you know, by Krias Yamsuf it says, Vayoyma Hashem el Moshe, ma titzak elai. Even were tafsuim nesavoisam, they were davening, and the Rebbeinu Shalom says to Moshe, why do you cry out to me? Yeah, very hard to understand what was wrong with what they were doing. Rashi says, ma titzak elai, olai hadover toli v'lo elach. It's up to me, not to you. In other words, don't talk to me about it. The Zohar in Parshat B'Shalach says, "Ma titzak elai ba'atike talya milsa." That Krias Yamsuf is dependent on some very high up there madrega, where tefillah is not toifus, and therefore ma titzak elai ba'atike talya milsa. So Krias Yamsuf was outside the pale of yikra'eni ve'eneu. It was outside of this system. There was no yikra'eni for Krias Yamsuf. And in such a case, there's busha. It's embarrassing to be saved. So how is the achabdehu going to happen? So it would seem that when we're talking about salvation, which is klape, which there's no tfisas mokim for tefillah, so the avoida, our avoida is not tefillah, but bitochain. As the pasuk says, "Vayoyim Moshe la'om al tiro hisyatzvu," stand fast to ru'as Yeshuas Hashem asher yaseh lechem hayoyim. You know, in the Nefesh HaChaim Shar Aleph Perek Tes, he says, "V'lechem be'eis Krias Yamsuf Omar Hu Yisborach LeMoshe Ma Titzak Elai Daber El Bnei Yisrael V'Yisol Rotza Loymar Dibididhu Talya Milsa." Depends on them. She'im heimo yiu b'toikef ha'emunah v'habitochen. If they'll have a full, complete emunah and bitochen, v'yisu holoich v'nosoya el hayam, samuch libom lo yira, me'oitzem bitchainam. From the strength of their bitochen, v'adai shevadai yikor lahem hayam, oz yigrum al yidei zeh hisoyrus l'mayla, they will awaken hisoyrus l'mayla, sheyasa lahem nes v'yikor l'fneim. That's the lashon of the Nefesh HaChaim. So that was our avodah in Krias Yamsuf, which was beyond tefillah. It's not like we had nothing to do. We had something to do, but it wasn't physical ishtadlus. It wasn't tefillah, but it was betochen. Now, you know, we say in davening, "V'sein sochar toiv l'chol haboitchim b'shimcha b'emes v'simchel keinu imoim v'loi nevoish ki v'chavatochnu." What's the v'loi nevoish ki v'chavatochnu? So, Pashut, we learn we shall not be disappointed. But I want to say v'loi nevoish ki v'chavatochnu means this, because somebody that really is helped without deserving it and without being yikra'eni, somebody that's helped without that is really a nevosh. It's really bohis listakula ba'ape. There's a boishes panim. There's no achabdeu. But we say that that in other words, since we have bitochen is also something that we do. And that is enough to remove the busha, V'loi nevoish ki v'chova tochnu. You know, in the Talmidei Rabbeinu Yoina, in the beginning of Brachas, on the Gemara that says, Kol hasoymech geula l'tfilah, harei ben olam haba. He says, he says, how could it be just for that? Soymech geula l'tfilah is such a big deal. So he says, Mipnei shekshemazkir geulas Mitzrayim, u'mispalel miyad, hu mara sheboiteach b'Hashem b'tfilah, kiven shemavakish mimenu tzrochov. Shemi she'enoi boiteach boi lo yavakish mimenu klum. V'chein nira be'ela shemois rabba b'parshas boyel parei she'omer l'shom. Shekshero Yisrael hanisim v'anifloi shoy oisei moim haboirei sheloi ketziv v'shelodem botchu boi. That Eden had betochen. Valzenem avaya Yisrael sayod al gdoila she'os Hashem b'Mitzrayim vayiru ha'omes Hashem v'yaminu b'Hashem. V'kiven shemaskir achshav oisa geula shebotchu avoiseinu b'Hashem v'hitzilom u'mispal miyad nimtza shegam hu boiteach boi sheyana oisa k'mo she'ona liYisrael b'avur shebotchu boi. ומפני זה, מזכיר אויסה הגאולה מספל מיד, והביטוחן הוא עיקר הירא והאמונה, ולפיכך זוכה בסיבוסי לחי עולם הבא. In any case, the Rabbeinu Yoina is saying before is that Krias Yamsuf was a function of bitochen, and it was the bitochen that brought about the Krias Yamsuf. Now, if in general, our partnership, mikoyach, our hishtadlus, brings simcha, as we say, that Shira is nemer ala yayin because yayin is mesamech alakim va'anoshim, because in yayin we partner with the Rebbeinu Shalom in the making of yayin, and so also in Yomim Tovim Moyadim L'Simcha because we partner with the Rebbeinu Shalom in making the Yom Tov. So avada there's simcha in every shutfus that we have, but just imagine the simcha that we have when we can be shutfim in something that we can't be shutfim in. In other words, when we're talking about a Yeshua on the level of Krias Yamsuf, which is beyond the realm of Tefillah, so we're talking that we become shutfim in that mikoyach the bitochen. So we're becoming shutfim in something which is mitzad atzmoi be'emes mufka from shutfis. It's impossible for a human to be a shutf in Krias Yamsuf, and nevertheless we have a shutfis in Krias Yamsuf because of the because and that brings not only simcha, but it brings simcha rabba, because that's the extreme simcha that's above and beyond the simcha of partnership. It's a partnership in something that's mitzad atzmoi mufka from partnership. And Mamela, I say that that's the yisoid of the shita of Rabbi Avram Kloisner, that on Shvi Shel Pesach we say Zman Simcha Seinu, because it's the highest level of Simcha. It's the Simcha Rabbah of the Shir Sayam, which is the Yisoid of the Moed of Shvi Shel Pesach. But in any case, we say Zman Cheiru Seinu. But nevertheless, Avada, it's a Zman Simcha Seinu also, and it's a Zman to be mischazik in the Midah of Betochen, which is the Yisoid of Krias Yamsuf. Rabbi Say, I wish you all Moyadim l'simcha, Chagim uzmanim l'sos. Okay.